Growing up, I was the middle child, right between my older sister, Emma, and my younger brother, Caleb. Mom always said I was the easy one, the calm in the storm, the one who didn't need much attention. At first, I thought that was a compliment. But as I got older, I realized it was just another way of saying I didn't stand out. Emma, on the other hand, was the star of our family. She was beautiful, confident, and always seemed to shine no matter where she went. In high school, she was class president and cheer captain. Mom and Dad bragged about her to everyone. Every time she walked into a room, my parents' faces would light up like the 4th of July. And honestly, I didn't mind. At least not at first. I was proud of her. She worked hard, and she was good at almost everything she tried. I just wished sometimes that I could make my parents' eyes light up that way too. Then came the day Emma got engaged. Her boyfriend Nathan proposed on a beach vacation and hired a photographer to capture the whole thing. Mom cried when she saw the pictures. Happy tears, the kind that sparkle. "Our baby's getting married," she said over and over. Dad couldn't stop smiling either. "She deserves the best," he told everyone. The next few months were like something out of a fairy tale. Mom and Emma spent every weekend touring venues and picking out dresses. They'd come home laughing, their arms full of color samples and magazines. I'd offer to help, but they always said, "Oh, sweetie, you've got so much going on." Don't worry about it, but I wasn't busy. Not really. I was just invisible. When Emma finally chose her venue, I realized how serious my parents were about making it perfect. It was at a country estate outside town, the kind of place that had a pond, gardens, and chandeliers hanging from oak trees. They hired a wedding planner, a caterer, and even a live string quartet. At dinner one night, I overheard Dad telling Aunt Linda, "It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You only get married once, right?" Aunt Linda chuckled. "You've got 2 more kids. You planning 3 big weddings?" Dad laughed. "Oh, I'm sure theirs will be smaller." Something about that sentence stung more than I wanted to admit. When the big day came, it was like watching a movie. Emma looked stunning in her white gown, and Mom and Dad were glowing. I helped with her dress, fixed her veil, and held her bouquet when she needed to wipe her eyes. I smiled for every photo, laughed at every speech, and did my best to feel happy. But there was this tiny ache in my chest, a whisper that said, "You'll never get this kind of love." At the reception, I danced and clapped and cheered. Everyone kept saying how perfect it all was. "It's like a dream," one guest said. Mom's face shone with pride. "She's our little princess," she replied. Later that night, when most of the guests had gone home, I was helping clean up when I heard Mom talking quietly to Aunt Linda again. "She's our princess," Mom said softly. We wanted to make sure she had everything she wanted. "You only get one perfect day." Aunt Linda's voice was gentle. "You know you've got 2 other kids. Don't forget them." Mom just laughed. "Oh, they'll understand. They're not as particular," her words hit like a cold wave. "Not as particular," as if caring about being celebrated was a flaw. I didn't say anything. I just kept folding napkins and packing up decorations. But something in me changed that night. For the first time, I saw things clearly. Emma wasn't just the favorite. She was the chosen one. And as much as I loved my sister, I knew that no matter what I did, my parents would never look at me the way they looked at her. I didn't realize how much that would matter until years later, when it was finally my turn to get married, and my parents showed me just how different their love could be. A few years after Emma's fairy tale wedding, my life started to settle into its own rhythm. I had graduated from college, gotten a steady job as a teacher's aide, and was dating Alex, the kindest, most grounded man I'd ever met. He wasn't flashy or rich, but he listened, made me laugh, and treated me like I was the most important person in the world. We'd been together for almost 3 years when he proposed. It wasn't on a beach with a photographer or in front of a big crowd. It was just us, sitting under the old oak tree at the park where we'd had our first picnic. The air smelled like grass and sunshine. He pulled out a small silver ring and said, "You make everything feel like home. Will you marry me?" I said yes before he even finished the question. When I got home that evening, I called my parents right away. I expected laughter and happy tears, maybe even the same excitement they'd had for Emma. Instead, there was a long pause on the phone. "Oh. Wow," Mom finally said. "That's soon, isn't it?" I frowned. "We've been together for years, Mom." Dad's voice came through next. "Well, congratulations, I guess." Have you two thought about where you'll get married? Their tone wasn't unkind, just cautious, like they were already worried about the details instead of being happy for me. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe they were just tired or surprised. But as the weeks went on, their lack of enthusiasm became impossible to ignore. When I visited one weekend, Mom and Emma were in the kitchen, flipping through old wedding albums. I sat down beside them and said lightly, "I've been looking at some small venues. Maybe something outdoors with a little barn or garden." Mom didn't even look up. "Oh, sweetheart, those rustic weddings can be cute, but they're usually not very elegant," Emma nodded. "Yeah, mine was so much work, but totally worth it." "You want people to remember your wedding." I smiled politely, trying not to let it sting. "I'm sure they'll remember it if they care about me." That made the room go quiet. Later that night, I asked my parents directly if they'd be willing to help with some of the costs, like they had for Emma. Mom sighed, the same sigh she used when she didn't want to say something hurtful. "Honey, you know times are tough. Your father and I spent so much on Emma's wedding. We just can't do that again." "I'm not asking for something huge," I said quietly. "Just a little help." Dad shook his head. "You and Alex both have jobs. You'll be fine." That was the end of it. I could have argued, but something in me told me not to. I didn't want to beg for love, so I did what I'd always done. I worked harder. I took extra hours at school and picked up shifts at the local coffee shop. I started selling small crafts online. Every dollar went into a little envelope I kept hidden in my dresser. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Alex offered to pay for most of the wedding himself, but I refused. "I want this to be ours," I told him. "Not something we owe anyone for." It took nearly a year, but we did it. Our wedding day was small but beautiful, held in a little barn decorated with fairy lights and wildflowers. My dress wasn't designer, but it was perfect for me. The food was homemade, the music came from a local band, and every detail felt personal and real. When I walked down the aisle and saw Alex waiting for me with tears in his eyes, I realized that even without my parents' help, I had everything I needed. Mom and Dad came, but I could tell they weren't impressed. They smiled politely for photos and made small talk with the guests. I overheard Mom whisper to Aunt Linda, "It's nice. Just very simple." That word, simple, felt like a paper cut across my heart. After dinner, I looked around and noticed my parents had already left. No goodbye, no hugs, just gone. Later that night, as the lights dimmed and the last guests left, Alex and I sat outside under the stars. I was still in my wedding dress, barefoot and tired, but happy in a quiet way. He took my hand and said, "You did it. You made something beautiful." I smiled softly. "Yeah, even if no one else sees it," he squeezed my hand. "I see it." And for the first time that day, I let myself cry. Not because I was sad about what I didn't have, but because I realized how much I'd done on my own. Still, a small part of me wondered if my parents would ever see me, really see me in the way they saw Emma. I didn't know it then. But life had a funny way of making people face the things they try to ignore. And soon, they'd have no choice but to see me for who I really was. 3 years passed after my wedding, and life slowly found its rhythm. Alex and I bought a small house on the edge of town, the kind with creaky floors, wildflowers in the yard, and a porch that felt like the heart of our little world. Then, our daughter Lily was born, the moment I held her for the first time. I felt something shift inside me. It was like my heart had grown a new room, one filled with love I didn't even know I was capable of. Watching her sleep on Alex's chest made me feel like I finally had everything I'd ever needed. For a while, my parents weren't very involved. They visited once when Lily was a newborn, but most of our relationship stayed polite and distant. It hurt, but I didn't have the energy to chase their approval anymore. I poured all my love into my little family instead. Then one afternoon, Mom called out of nowhere. "We're planning a family reunion," she said brightly. "Everyone's coming, aunts, uncles, cousins, even Emma and her in-laws. It's been far too long since we were all together." At first, I hesitated. The idea of spending an entire day pretending everything was fine made my stomach twist. But Alex encouraged me. "Maybe it's time," he said gently. "Sometimes people change when they finally see what they've been missing." So, we packed up Lily and drove down the familiar road to my parents' house. When we arrived, I had to laugh a little. They had rented out the same event hall where Emma's wedding was held. The place was decorated with gold ribbons, fresh flowers, and soft music playing in the background. It felt like stepping right back into Emma's big day, only this time it wasn't about a wedding. It was about family. Emma greeted me with her usual confidence. "Oh my gosh, you look so good," she said, giving me a quick hug before rushing off to help Mom arrange the dessert table. It was like nothing had changed. She was still the shining star, the one everyone noticed first. But when people saw Lily, everything shifted. My little girl became the center of attention. Cousins, aunts, uncles, and everyone wanted to hold her. Even Mom couldn't get enough. "She looks just like you did at her age," she said softly, touching Lily's hair. "You were such a sweet baby." For a moment, I saw something I hadn't seen in years, a flicker of warmth in her eyes that wasn't filtered through comparison. Dinner began, and the long table buzzed with conversation and laughter. I sat beside Alex trying to relax when Aunt Linda stood up to give a toast. She raised her glass, smiling. "It's wonderful to have everyone here," she said. "Family is everything, isn't it?" Everyone nodded and clinked glasses. Then Aunt Linda turned her gaze toward me. "And I just want to say," she continued, "I'm proud of our girl here. She's done so much, raising a beautiful family, working hard, doing it all on her own. Not everyone could have done what she did." The room went silent. Emma's fork froze midair. Mom's smile faltered. Dad cleared his throat. "Well, we've always supported our kids however we can," he said stiffly. I looked down at my plate, then back up. My voice came out calm, but my hands were trembling slightly. "Actually, you didn't, but that's okay. It taught me how to stand on my own." The words hung in the air like heavy clouds. You could hear the soft clinking of glasses stop, one by one. Caleb, now a grown man with a wife of his own, finally spoke. "It's true," he said quietly. "You've always treated Emma differently. We all saw it. I just didn't think anyone would ever say it out loud." Mom's eyes widened. "That's not true. We love all of you equally." But no one spoke up to agree with her. Even Emma looked uncomfortable, her eyes darting between us. Aunt Linda sighed softly. "Love isn't just something you say, dear. It's something you show." For a long moment, no one said anything. I felt my heartbeat pounding in my chest, but at the same time, I felt lighter, like I'd finally let go of a secret I'd been carrying for years. Mom pushed back her chair quietly and said, "I think I need some air." Dad followed her out of the room. The conversation slowly picked up again, but the mood had shifted. It wasn't cheerful anymore. It was thoughtful, heavy, real. Later, as Alex and I packed up Lily's things, he whispered, "You were brave tonight." I looked toward the door where my parents had left and said softly, "I didn't mean to hurt them. I just wanted them to understand," he nodded. "Maybe that's the only way they will." I didn't know if I'd done the right thing, but for the first time, I didn't feel invisible anymore. And what happened after that night would prove that sometimes, speaking the truth is what finally lets people see the light. The reunion ended awkwardly, to say the least. People avoided eye contact, and the laughter that had once filled the room faded into uneasy silence. When Alex and I left that night, I wasn't sure what would happen next. Part of me worried I'd gone too far, that by speaking up, I'd broken something that could never be fixed. But another part of me felt calm. For the first time in my life, I'd spoken the truth, not out of anger, but out of years of quiet hurt. A few days later, my phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice sounded small. "Can I come over?" she asked. When she arrived, she was holding one of her homemade pies, apple cinnamon, the kind she used to make when we were kids. It wasn't just a dessert. It was her way of saying, "I want to talk." She sat at my kitchen table, looking around at the house. Lily was napping in the next room, and the afternoon sun poured in through the window. For a moment, we just sat in silence. Finally, Mom spoke. "I didn't realize how much I hurt you," she said softly. "When we helped Emma, we thought we were doing the right thing. I just wanted to make sure one of you had everything I never did." I swallowed hard. "But you forgot that the rest of us wanted to feel loved, too." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I thought you were stronger, that you didn't need the same attention. But that was unfair. I didn't expect her to say that. For years, I'd dreamed of hearing those words, and now that they were here, I didn't feel angry anymore. Just sad and relieved. We talked for a long time. About my wedding. About how I'd worked 2 jobs. about how it felt watching them leave early that night. She listened without interrupting, tears silently running down her cheeks. When she stood to leave, she hugged me tighter than she had in years. "You taught me something," she whispered. "I can't change what happened, but I can do better now." And she did. Over the next few months, my parents started coming around more often, not with gifts or grand gestures, but with time. Dad helped Alex fix the porch steps. Mom cooked dinners and offered to babysit Lily so we could have a night out. Sometimes we'd sit together on the couch, drinking tea and watching old movies, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like her daughter again, not the forgotten middle child. When Caleb got engaged a year later, something remarkable happened. Mom and Dad invited all of us over to talk about the wedding. I expected the old patterns to return, Emma taking charge, Mom fussing, Dad planning to foot the bill. But instead, Dad said, "We want to help however we can, not with money this time, but with our time and hands." They offered to cook, decorate, and even help build a wooden arch for the ceremony. Caleb's fiancé cried, and even Emma looked touched. On the day of Caleb's wedding, the whole family worked together. Mom arranged flowers, Dad grilled food, and Emma and I helped set up tables. There were no favorites, no competition, just love. During the reception, Mom pulled me aside. She looked out at the crowd, at Caleb dancing with his new wife, at Lily chasing bubbles across the grass. "You were right," she said quietly. "It's not about the size of the wedding or how much money we spend. It's about who's standing beside you." I smiled. "That's all I ever wanted you to see." She took my hand and squeezed it. "Thank you for teaching me what love really means." Years have passed since then. Our family still isn't perfect. No family ever is, but something changed that day. We learned to show up for each other, not just when it was easy or impressive, but when it mattered most. Emma and I grew closer too. One afternoon, while our kids played in the yard, she said, "You know, I used to think you were jealous of me, but now I get it. You didn't want what I had. You just wanted to feel loved the same way." I smiled and nodded. "That's all any of us ever want." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "Well, for what it's worth, you're the strongest person I know." That meant more to me than she probably realized, because in the end, it wasn't about teaching my parents a lesson to make them feel guilty. It was about helping them see that love isn't about money, weddings, or who shines the brightest. It's about being there, truly being there, for each other. And that's the kind of love I'm teaching Lily now. Because one day she'll grow up and have her own story to tell. And I hope she'll say, "My mom taught me that love isn't about fairness. It's about showing up every single time."